Hi friends, it's Diana here today, and today we're going to be sewing up the Suzie tie back top and dress pattern. If you remember, we already sewed this cute top a couple of weeks ago, and I give you a little sneak peek. Today I'm going to be sewing up the dress version with no sleeves. I'm super excited about this dress. I think it's going to be adorable and a must for the spring/summertime. I can't wait. So let's get started. All right, so I've got my 4 backs, liner and outer, and there's 2 backs for liner, 2 backs for outer. I've got my 2 fronts, my liner and outer. I've got 4 pocket pieces because I'm doing 2 pockets, and I've got my skirt front and back. We're gonna get started by grabbing our front bodice. It could be the liner or the outer. We're gonna do this to both. And I'm gonna face it right side up here on my mat. I'm gonna grab my back, the corresponding backs, and I'm gonna face them right sides together, and I'm gonna attach at the shoulder. Now I know with this fabric it's kind of hard to tell which one's the right side and the wrong side. So I'm just gonna tell you every time that I'm gonna be doing this right sides together here at the shoulders. I'm going to repeat this for my liner. So I'm going to do the same thing for my outer and my liner. For sewing the shoulders, you're going to use your preferred stretch stitch, which to me, for me, is going to be my serger. Next, we're going to place together the liner and the outer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to face one of them right side up, and then I'm going to face the other one right sides together, right on top of it. We're going to match up the shoulder seams. I'm going to cut these threads because they really do annoy me, and they're going to be cut in the side seams, so you don't really need all these serger tails to be in your way. So we're going down the front of the neckline and all the way around this back tie area and all the way down the bottom, but you're not sewing the side seams or the arm size. We're going to do that on both sides of the back ties. Now, 2 things about when we're sewing the neckline. First of all, I'm going to start at the front area here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our sewing machine. And we're going to sew up a straight line starting about an inch from this pivot point here, from the corner point. We're going to start about an inch up, and we're going to go sew straight down. Then we're going to go past that point, and we're going to go to where our seam allowance ends, and we're going to pivot over and go over to the other side. So we're going down, stop, pivot, and go over about an inch in, and do the same on the other corner. We want to make sure that our corners are nice and sharp. So this is how we're going to get those sharp corners, by going down, pivot, and over with a straight stitch. Then we'll cut those edges and we'll be able to sew all of it up. Now, and then the rest of it you can sew up with you prefer stretch stitch, which I'm going to do my serger. I'm going to show you that. Another thing is using clear elastic. Now, clear elastic is such a great way to keep your bodice from like gaping down, like the, like sometimes stretchy fabric can start to like kind of stretch out throughout the day and stuff like that and kind of lay down, where this clear elastic will really, really help with that. So what we're going to do is we're also going to be adding some clear elastic around the neckline and around the shoulder sleeve area here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, once I sew those corners and once I'm going to go in with my serger to sew it in, that's when I'm going to be attaching my clear elastic. Now, if you don't want to sew it in at the same time, that's okay. You can then come back and sew it in after you sew your stitch. You can do it with a zigzag stitch. You can sew it in however you want to. And what you're going to be doing is you're just going to be adding just a little bit of tension so it keeps it straight. You're not going to like, you're not going to pull it like super tight, but you're just going to want it to be like taut. So you're going to add a little bit of tension so it keeps your bodice nice and taut. So like it's not going to get any bigger than what you told it to be with this clear elastic. Let's go do all that. Okay, so what I'm going to do again, I'm going to start right here, like about an inch away, give you my seam allowance. And I'm just going to stitch. Pick up my foot, but not my needle, and I'm just going to pivot over towards the inside of the neckline and go another inch. Okay. And then you can see that I have that corner there nice and sharp. Then we're going to go ahead and grab our scissors. I was going to say our knife. Well, it's going to be kind of hard to do with a knife, but it's easier to do with scissors. And I'm just going to clip up to that corner. So just don't cut the thread, but we're just going to do a little clip just like that. So now we're pulled into that corner. So that when we flip this over, you'll have a nice, sharp little square corner here. We're going to do the same on the other side. All right, so now I'm going to head over to my serger, and that's where I'm going to sew the rest of it. And I am also going to be attaching my clear elastic. Now, like I said, if you don't feel comfortable sewing the elastic at the same time as you're sewing your neck area, you don't have to. You can go ahead and sew this on first and then come back and attach the elastic. I like to do both at the same time, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to start with the front neckline area, the straight part. I can move this kind of out of the way because I have that pivot point there. I'm going to put the elastic on the bodice front, not the liner. So this piece up here is the bodice front. And I'm just going to place that clear elastic, and it's kind of hard to see, right where my seam allowance is going to go. I'm going to fit it right underneath it. I have enough over here that I'm holding it here on this side. Some people like to actually feed it right through this little gap area here, push it right through it and then it kind of helps keep it even. You can do that. I never really done that. I'm going to put my needle down here, my foot down, and now my elastic is kind of caught in there. I'm still going to hold it here a little bit in the back just to make sure that it's not going to rip out or whatever when I'm trying to sew. And then I'm going to find my foot. There we go. And then I'm going to like just hold the elastic a little bit taut. I'm not stretching super tight. I'm just holding it a little bit taut as I'm sewing it on. I can let go of the back one now because obviously it already caught. And then I'm going all the way down the front. Okay, as you can see, you can't really see, but my elastic is caught in there in my seam allowance. I can go ahead and trim the other side as well. And then we want to do the same thing going around the sides. So we're doing different pieces of elastic just so it's not, kind of cut there. We're going to do the same going to the other side. So I'm going to put the elastic again the same way. And again, if you don't feel comfortable, you can do it later. And then start right here in this corner. And I'm attaching elastic basically just like right up to that curved area here. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut my elastic there and then keep going all the way around the whole tie and then do the same on the other side. Around the tie, I'm just kind of pivoting over and I'm lifting up my foot and kind of turning this around because it's a turning point area. And you can, if you want this to be like really nice and rounded, you can also just go to your sewing machine and do the same thing with this part where you sew your stitch on the sewing machine first and then you go in with your stretch stitch to finish it off. Okay, so that is finished. Now we're going to do the same on the other side. Now that my bodice is sewn, my elastic is on there, we're going to understitch. So we're basically flipping this up. We're not going to turn it over quite yet because we're doing the sleeveless version. So we're going to sew our arm size. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it open and I'm going to grab my seam allowance and I'm going to flip it towards my liner. This is going to be my liner because as you can see, my fabric has a little unraveling here, which I did not notice. That's okay because it's my liner, so nobody will be able to see it, so I'm okay. But when I saw that, after I had already cut it, after everything, I'm like, oh no. Thankfully, like I said, it's just my liner, so it will be fine. So we're going to go ahead and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and I'm going to press it towards my lining, and then we're going to stitch it towards our lining. What this is going to do is when you're wearing that top or dress, the inside, the lining is not going to try to come up and have like a little, like piece hanging out or whatever. You don't want to have that. So we're going to go and do a straight stitch. So we're going to pull it towards the lining and top stitch it to the lining. And what I will do, I probably will just go like pretty much to my shoulder, just a little bit past my shoulder on the sides. It's up to you. So I'm going to do on the sides, past my shoulder, and then the whole front neckline. While I'm doing that, I'm also going to go ahead and start prepping my skirt, just because you all know I like to do that all at the same time. And it's something that I can do while I'm doing the other thing as well. So grab your skirt pieces if you're doing pockets. Now, if you're not doing pockets, you don't have to prep this because you won't have pockets. But anyway, I'm going to grab my front piece. Well, either skirt, you're going to do it on both. I'm going to grab it and face it right side up. And where I put my marking, I'm going to grab one of my pocket pieces and face it right sides down together on my side seam here. And you want your piece to be facing down, because that's how you're going to put your hand in your pocket. The first time I did these kind of pockets, I sewed them wrong sides together, and I had my seam, you could see my seam on the outside, and I was like, that's not right. So that's how I always remember. Right sides together, or you'll have a wrong pocket. And I did that before. What are some of the things you have done as you start your sewing journey? I feel like there's so many things that I could go on and on about all the mistakes I've made, but that's okay, because that's how we learn. And honestly, I think I only did that mistake once. Now there's other mistakes that I've made a million times, and I'm just like, do you ever learn? But that pocket mistake I made once, and so proud of myself. But yeah, we all make mistakes, and we just learn and move on, and it's okay, and we can fix it. And honestly, I don't think I ever fixed that pocket. I think forever that sweater, that hoodie is still to this day has one. No, and I just, a funny thing is I only did it in one pocket. Still has one pocket that you can see the seam of it, because I put it on the wrong way. But that's okay. That's okay. My most made mistake, I think, is trying to think. It might be putting my neckband on backwards and having the seam at the front, because sometimes I don't pay attention. So yeah, that might be my most made, like big, like you can tell, mistake. Yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and also sew those pockets up. You can sew them with a straight stitch. I'm just going to sew them on my serger just because it's easy to go ahead. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew them right here at that raw edge to attach those to the sides. That way when we go back to sew the sides together, we're just going to sew around the pockets and put that skirt together. Remember that you're going towards your lining. So you're flipping it over towards your lining. Helps if you have the thread on there correctly. And I like to kind of open up the seam, make sure it's nice and open when you're doing this. All right, now it is time to sew the sides together. Now, the arm sides together. As I said, I am doing the sleeveless version here, but if you're doing sleeves, make sure you check out my other video where I showed the sneak peek. I did sleeves on that one, so you can go ahead and check that out and do the sleeves like they are done over there. But since I'm doing sleeveless, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to match up the arm side here together, right sides together, and we're going to sew that arm side closed with your preferred stretch stitch. Remember, I think I said it already, but you're sewing right sides together, so you should be able to see all your seams here. That way when you flip it over, you won't see any seams. All right, so while I'm at it, I'm also going to go ahead and grab my back skirt. I'm going to prep that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the top edge, and I'm going to create a casing to insert my elastic for the back. So I'm going to go ahead and fold over a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. And I'm going to top stitch that to create a little casing where my elastic is going to go through. And then for my front skirt, I'm going to put in a gathering stitch at the top edge, just so that I can gather it to fit my front bodice. And I have marked my center piece here. So if you did not mark that, make sure you mark it because it makes it easier to gather to the width that you need it to be. All right, so now for the front bodice, we can go ahead and turn it around, and we're gonna very carefully turn those ties and bring everything right through this shoulder gap here. So I'm going to kind of roll it a little bit, or yeah, like this way. So that way it can come and slide through really easily. You want to use a turning tool or whatever you have. You can even put a pin at the end and then try to bring it through. So we just have to be very careful though, so that it doesn't rip the fabric. Okay, once it's all turned, I'm gonna go give it a really nice little steam. All right, now because we're doing the version that has no sleeves, we're gonna open this up, and I'm gonna get rid of these because they really do annoy me. And I'm using like my dullest scissors because my other scissors are somewhere else. Oh my goodness. These are the scissors I cut paper with. Okay, so then we're gonna grab our back bodice and we're gonna lay it right sides together here at the shoulder edge. And you're gonna have a 1/2 inch seam allowance here at the bottom where you're going to attach your skirt. So you will see that you will have your seam allowance here at the bottom. So don't be like, oh, I have fabric left over at the bottom. What do I do with it? It's supposed to be there. That's where you're going to attach that back bodice, because to the back, I'm sorry, the front bodice. And so what I'm going to do is you can go ahead and base this on first, but I'm just going to flip this right over and sandwich it. So I'm like sandwiching the the back bodice in between the two front bodices, the back bodice liner and outer. And then we're going to just sew that shut right there. And again, you're going to have that seam allowance at the bottom where you're going to attach that bodice, and do the same on the other side. So you got it open here. This is your outer and this is your liner. You're going to grab your bodice, make sure it's not twisted. This is my back bodice, and you see both sides are attached, the top and the bottom. You just have that open gap here where the side seam is. So you're going to place that right sides here together and at the edge, and then it comes all the way down here, giving you that little seam allowance here. And then you grab that front bodice and bring it right over. So now it is sandwiched. The back bodice is sandwiched between the two front bodices. And you're going to sew that right sides together right there. Okay, so we're going to go sew that up. And our bodice will be done. Now for our back skirt, we're going to go ahead and insert our elastic through that casing we created. Before you go all the way in, you're going to want to, here at the top, at the end, you're going to want to do a little stitch there. So I'm just going to clip it for now. And then continue pulling, and then do the same here at the other end. You're gonna stitch it closed, so your elastic is not gonna go all the way through, and then just even out that elastic. This is gonna be your back skirt. You can go ahead and baste and sew those on those little pieces here, the elastic. I'm just gonna go to the next step and be really, really careful when I'm sewing this on, and make sure I attach that first. You will see here at the top, once you folded that down, that means that your front bodice is going to have also that little seam allowance there, just like your front skirt, just like your front bodice, because they're going to get attached together. So we're going to go ahead and attach those sides. If you don't have pockets, you're going to be going straight down. But since I have my pockets prepped there, you're going to go down around the pocket and down all the way down. And you will have, again, that seam allowance there at the top where you're going to be sewing that onto your bodice. All right, we are almost done. All we have to do is attach our skirt front to our bodice front. So we're going to find the half of my bodice front here and mark that. And remember, you're going to be attaching all of it together. So both front and liner, outer and liner, and you're going to attach it right sides together. So this is when you need to make sure that you have your right side up here. And then here's my skirt front. And we're going to grab that and gather it to fit. So I'm going to pull on those basting stitches that I created earlier and gather that to fit. I told you have to remember where your mark is, because that's always kind of easier to gather like to the center and then pull from the other side and then gather to the center again. Okay, and then I'm just going to flip it right on top and attach it. No, don't attach the back, just the front. Right sides together there. And you're going to come right to the edge, right where that seam allowance ends right there. Grab that there. And what you can do is, if you're like, oh, I don't want to, I want it to be like really, really even, and I'm kind of worried about it on the corner, you can go in and base that corner first before you sew it on, just so it's nice and basted on first, and then you can do the sewing. You can attach it. Same on this side. So I go to that corner and I like to go ahead and clip that one first. But again, if you want to sew it, you can go ahead and sew it first and then sew the front on, making sure all those gathers are nice and even. And after I sew this up, all you have to do is hem, which I like to try my dress on and everything before I hem, to see if I want to take it up a little bit or leave it at, the length or whatever. Sometimes even with this kind of fabric, the knit fabric, sometimes I'll leave it raw. So anyway, let me go sew that. Then we're going to hem, fold over, top stitch, and we'll be done. I'll show you what it looks like. All right. All right, I'm so excited. This is looking so good. I just have to pull out that basting stitch. And here on the side, we have that serger tail here. So what we're going to do is we can use a needle, or what I actually really like to do, and well, you can use the needle and thread it through, but what I like to do is I'm just going to go ahead and go to my sewing machine and pull this serger tail over my seam, my serge seam, and just zigzag stitch it on there and then cut the rest of it off. And that will stick it back so that you don't even see that on the back of your bodice. Same on the other side. So just kind of pull that back on that seam allowance and stitch it on. And then I'm going to go and hem. You can hem by using, I already folded my hem over and it's ready to hem. You can use a cover stitch, which I have a cover stitch, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and do the stretch stitch on my sewing machine, just because I can find a thread that matches the color of my dress better. I don't have serger cones to do my cover stitch. So I'm going to do a stretch stitch on my sewing machine. You can do a lightning bolt stitch. You can do a triple stitch, which is the one I probably will use, or whatever kind of stretch stitch you want to do for hem. And then we're done. So I'm going to go do all that and then I'll try it on. And I'm so excited. I hope you are as well. All right, friends, we are done with this dress. I think it turned out so adorable. I love it, especially the back. I think the tie back is super cute. What do you think? Comment below and let me know. Also, the pockets, of course, because who doesn't love having pockets in their dress? I love it so much. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please comment, like, share, subscribe if you haven't, so you never miss any of our tutorials. Go grab your pattern, come back and sew it up with me, and I'll see you all next time.